Did you know that there are two correct ways to cite a source in your academic writing, and knowing when to use each one of them can instantly improve your academic work or essay? Welcome to the GIBAH Research Clinic, where we teach you and provide you with tips that help you to conduct research and write in a simple, practical, and impactful way. I'm going to show you a simple technique that will help you produce an academic writing that is professional and easy to read. So, there are two ways to cite a source in your academic writing. One is the author prominent citation, where the name of the author comes first before the idea. Let's take, for example, you have a citation that goes, Smith 2024 believes that employee engagement improves organizational performance. In this type of citation, the author comes first because you are trying to make the reader know that the person behind this idea is Smith. The second form of citation is the information prominent citation, where you put the idea first and the author at the end. In this type of citation, you are trying to make the reader understand the concept or the information or the idea and not necessarily who is behind it. For example, when you say employee engagement improves organizational performance, and then you put the citation Smith 2024 at the end, that type of citation is known as information prominent citation. So in information prominent citation, it is the idea that matters more than the person behind it. Meanwhile, in author prominent citation, it is both the idea and the person behind it that matters. So when you want to push the person behind the idea, the concept, the author prominent citation is more handy. Now, a very important question is, where could you use each type of citation? Now, let's say you are writing a literature review in your work, either thesis or dissertation, and you're writing a literature review. Now, there are three key components of a standard literature review. You have the conceptual review, you have the theoretical review, and then you have the empirical review. So the question is, in which of these components are you supposed to use author prominent or information prominent citation? And this is the practical part of this lesson. Now, pay attention. For your conceptual review, you want your readers to know the different concepts and constructs that are related to your topic that you are researching. So, the information prominent citation style is going to predominate your referencing. All right? That doesn't mean that you cannot use author prominent citations. You use it sparingly, but the general idea is what you're pushing, not who is behind it. You're pushing the general idea, not who is behind it. So in most of your conceptual review, you are to use information prominent citation. You say what the idea is, and then you put the author at the end. Now, in your theoretical review, two things are important. Both the person behind the theory and the theory itself are equally important, right? In your theoretical review, you use mostly author prominent citation because you want the reader to know who is responsible for the theory. You put the author and then the theory, okay? For example, if you put Engels 1991 as the person who brought the theory of, let's say, consumer behavior, all right? Now, it is important for you to cite the author, then you bring the theory. That way, the reader will know that, okay, this theory is from this author, right? But when you are trying to explain the application of that theory, you can now do information prominent citation. when you are trying to explain how the theory applies to your study, you can bring in other references in an information prominent style. Okay, so the gold standard is state the person behind the theory and what the theory is. Then when you want to apply the theory to your work, you are free to use information prominent citation. Okay, now in your empirical review, now sometimes writers, students, academicians, some people most times fall into the temptation of thinking that they are supposed to use author prominent. Okay, to say Benson et al. 2025 conducted a study on this and that. Now, that is usually a weak approach to writing an empirical study. Remember, the goal of an empirical study is to synthesize, analyze, and evaluate information in the literature. So, you want to use clusters of ideas or clusters of references, right? So you want to find authors that have said something similar about a particular research objective, for example. So the information prominent citation is a go-to standard for a large proportion of your empirical writing. All right. So you make a statement and you put the authors who share the same ideas about that statement. All right. But if there is another author who has a contradictory viewpoint of what the first authors have said, you can now use author prominent citation to bring in this new author that is saying something contradictory. Okay, so the first is that you use information prominent citation to show how different ideas are related, to analyze, to evaluate, and to synthesize. And then you use author prominent citation in your empirical review if there is someone, an author, who is making a contradictory or bringing a new viewpoint to the topic. In writing your academic paper, it is important to know what the purpose of a paragraph or a sentence is. If the purpose of that sentence or paragraph is to explain a concept, then you can use information prominent citation. But remember that if you want to compare different definitions by different authors, that is where you can use author prominent citation in your conceptual review. I also mentioned that in your theoretical review, the main citation style is author prominent because you want them to know the author as well as the idea they are bringing. All right. And when you are trying to apply the theory to your concept or to your topic, you can use information prominent citation. In the empirical review, we also said that the primary citation style is information prominent style because you want to use a lot of authors' ideas, you're synthesizing and putting them together. All right. But if there is a contradictory idea by another author, that's when you can bring author prominent. So that's it for today's episode on Research Clinic Monday. Please follow GIBAH for more tips on how to do research that is impactful, practical, and meaningful. See you in our next episode.